evening, everyone. Welcome to our Board of Education candidates and to the community members for joining us in person here tonight or via live stream. Before we get started, a couple of housekeeping items and some procedural notes. Tonight's event is being recorded and a link will be provided by the district prior to the vote. And I want to emphasize that this is a Meet the Candidates event and not a debate. So the evening is intended for each candidate to be able to share a little bit about themselves, introduce themselves, and share their views on some of the topics that our community members are curious about. So I thank you to all the community members that submitted a question for the evening, which we have synthesized and tried to cover as much as possible in the 2 hours that we have tonight. All the candidates will have an opportunity to respond to each question and to be the first respondent, selected at random, to be followed by a response from the other candidates to their left. Each candidate will have 3 minutes to respond, at which time we will proceed to the next candidate's microphone. We ask that candidates respect the time limit and refrain from interrupting so that all the candidates can have sufficient time to respond to the questions. All those in attendance this evening are expected to maintain civility and to respect the views of others. We ask that you refrain from calling out, clapping, or other disruptions. Anyone using abusive, inflammatory, or offensive language or in any way causing disruption will be asked to leave the premises. We thank everyone in advance for your cooperation, and without further ado, we will get going on to our first portion. So the first question will be answered by, this is a random selection, Mr. Capalbo. And the question, or rather an introduction, is tell us about yourself and why you want to serve as a board member on the Yorktown Central School District Board of Education.
Okay. Well, I'm the winner here. Thank you, everybody, for coming. It's good to see people participating in their community. Thank you for fellow candidates for being here and participating as well, and thank you for putting on this. So my name is Michael Capalbo, and I've lived in Yorktown for 28 years. My daughter has gone through the Yorktown school system. She's gone through French Hill, Mildred Strang, and the high school. My wife graduated from the Yorktown school system. My sister-in-law graduated from the Yorktown school system. My brother-in-law graduated from Yorktown schools. My father-in-law was the assistant principal of Yorktown High School, and he was a physics teacher here as well. And my mother's family has been in this community for over 100 years. So I have a deep appreciation for this community and what makes Yorktown a great place. I want to serve the community because I want Yorktown to remain a great place. Had not Richie, Frank, and I stepped up to run, the incumbent candidates would have run unopposed. Again, year after year after year after year after year, the same people on the school board. This is not healthy. This can lead to, school board can start to work, feel comfortable, and work within itself. And that will lead to confirmation bias. The connection to the community suffers. You start to get groupthink, and when that happens, that's harmful because the views of people with other outside of the accepted narrative are marginalized, ignored, and as much dismissed. We need new perspective and new enthusiasm on the school board. Throughout my corporate career, I've close to 4 decades working white-collar jobs in corporations. I've been a project manager, a business analyst, a product owner, a troubleshooter, a writer. For major corporations, you would know every single one of them. I've had to operate with cross-functional teams. I've had to build relationships with subject matter experts. I've had to interface with people at all levels in the corporation, from interns to C-level managers. I know what it is. I've worked with every culture and every ethnicity imaginable. I know what it means to be part of a team, to work collaboratively, and to achieve goals. I expect to apply the skills and experiences to my role on the school board, and I will tackle this role with the same tenacity I've used throughout my career.
Thank you, Mr. Capalbo. Ms. Reynolds?
Thank you for hosting this candidates night tonight, Lisa. We appreciate it, and I appreciate the opportunity to give the community a little bit of time to learn about me and my colleagues. I am a proud 23-year resident of Yorktown Heights. I'm married to my husband, who's sitting right there, who is a proud YHS graduate. I have 3 children. I have 2 recent YHS graduates. One will be completing her master's in education and special education next week, and one who started and is a freshman completing his first year and will be done on Friday. And I currently have a junior at the high school who has really enjoyed his time in the Yorktown schools along with my other 2. I just paused for a moment just to share a quote from my daughter and how proud she makes me and how proud she makes me of Yorktown schools. I'm going to reflect back to about 4 or 5 years ago when she first started college after being a month there and coming home for the first time. And I quote what she said to me. She said, "Mom, I've never felt so prepared for college." She goes, "It's unreal, the education that Yorktown schools gave to me." So that'll tie into a little bit later when I talk about why I am running to be reelected for my seat. A little bit about me. I am also a public school graduate from a Westchester school, namely Pleasantville Schools. I have a bachelor's of electrical engineering. I have a master's of an MBA in marketing. I worked for a utility company locally on energy conservation projects. After that, after receiving my MBA, I worked for a leading provider of financial protection benefits. I have a lot of background in not only engineering, but in management as well, because for the provider of financial protection benefits, I held several management positions. Outside of my work history, after I had children, I quickly jumped into activities in the school district. I volunteered to be a PTA president for Rompond, the MES, MS, and YHS, and I believe MES, MS, and YHS, I was actually PTA president there twice. I enjoy working with the children of the community, and in order to get to know my community a little bit better, I started coaching for YAC and for YYSC. My reason for staying on the board and wanting to remain on the Board of Education is I really want the best for our students. We've been through a pandemic, and we really want to keep the course and continue to move forward very quickly. So it's really all about the students. I'm very student-centric, and I believe in student-centric education.
Thank you, Ms. Reynolds. Mr. Panabianco.
All right, thank you, everybody. Thank you all for taking the time out to coming here, and I appreciate everyone's input in all this. So again, my name is Frank Panabianco. I have been a resident of Yorktown Heights for almost 50 years. I went to Yorktown Elementary Schools, the middle school, as well as I graduated from Yorktown High School in 1985. As a child growing up in Yorktown, I was active in the community, volunteering, as well as being part of community groups such as Cub Scouts, altar serving, assistant coaching, and I was also elected as a class officer of my class in 1985. As an adult, I continued volunteering, coaching, both softball and soccer in the town, helped with food drives, feeding the homeless at shelters, planting flowers and plants at Brookside Elementary School, and spending some of my Thanksgiving feeding in Peekskill and Yorktown for the homeless there. I started my career as a substitute teacher in Yorktown Middle School, Brookside School, and Mohansick School in the late 80s. I then became a teaching assistant in Brookside School, where I also worked and was the director of the after-school program at Brookside School. I worked with students and provided small group instruction in both math and reading. In addition to working as a teaching assistant in the school day, as I mentioned, I ran the after-school program. And during that time, I was able to obtain an associate's degree in business administration, a bachelor's degree in math and education, as well as a master's degree in environmental science. I then became a math and social studies teacher in the Bronx in grades 6 through 8, and then I became a 5th grade teacher in another school in a different district in the Bronx. And after just 2 years of being not even tenured, I was nominated and elected by my staff to represent them as the teachers' union rep for the school. Over 100 members on the staff elected me, and while I was the union rep, not only for my school, I also became a New York rep for New York City and the New York State NYSET delegate, as well as a national AFT delegate for teachers. I still do that now. Today, I'm still in New York City. I have over 25 years of education, and I also represent in New York City and do the retirements for teachers as well, where I deal with over 50,000 retirees, as well as over 100,000 in service and teachers on leaves. So parents and teachers and leadership committees I've been part of, as well as providing monthly meetings with local and regional superintendents. That was part of my task. I had to turnkey all that information to my staff and parents. My experience as an educator and as a union rep has provided me with the tools to bring together the aspects of educational prospect with teachers, parents, and students and administrators. I have been blessed with a wonderful wife, 2 daughters, and now 2 granddaughters.
Thank you, Mr. Penabianco. Mr. Janoska.
My name is Richard Janoska. I am a recent graduate from Yorktown High School, graduating with the class of 2018. Through my time in the community of Yorktown, I got the pleasure of being part of the football and lacrosse community, which would soon lead to my proudest moments at high school, representing Yorktown in 3 state championship games. Also, aside from sports, I've also got some great honors academically, making the high honor roll and principals list. Through my time in the high school, I accumulated over 200-plus hours of community service, working with organizations such as YAC, Yorktown Athletics Club, ASK, Children Organ Transplant Association, and also taking part in the Battle of Yorktown, where I would take time out of my day to clean up garbage around town. Also in high school, I was part of VASA and the Big Buddy program. I'm graduating from Pace University this coming week with a bachelor's degree in finance, double minor in accounting and political science, and I have a job lined up for July to be a financial analysis. Being a recent graduate and being a young adult in the community, I feel I can be a voice for not only the students in the district, being that I'm a recent graduate, but I can also be a great connection and great relationship with parents in the community. After spending 4 years in college and now entering the real world, I wish the district had some classes and programs that I could have used during my time in college, as well that could have helped set me up for the future. I would like to use my experience to help students at Yorktown have an easier transition than I did.
Thank you, Mr. Janoska. Ms. Bose?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us here in person and also on the live stream, and thank you for the District PTSA for graciously hosting this. I'm Reshmi Bose, an 18-year resident in Yorktown with my husband, who is there. Both our children attend Yorktown schools. I've been honored to be on the Board of Ed for 6 years. I chair the Audit Committee on the Board of Ed, and I'm also the BOE liaison to the District PTSA. Prior to being on the board, I held multiple volunteer positions in the district, co-president at Brookside, president of the Foundation for Excellence, and also president for the District PTSA over a span of several years. At Brookside and at Crown Pond, I've chaired the yearbook committee again for several years, and I brought in after-school robotics programs and animation programs for hundreds of students who did not have that opportunity prior to that. In my volunteer roles, I've had the opportunity and the honor to work closely with our teachers, our staff, our administrators, and really build partnerships and understand what our priorities are. And that is one of my reasons for serving on the Board of Ed. And I attended every public meeting for a whole year before I decided to run on the board in 2016. In addition to my BOE responsibilities as a parent, I'm sure you've seen me at multiple school events volunteering, whether it's the high school swing dance or the science research practice nights or the track and field concession stand, among many other things. For the 5th year in a row, I will also be sponsoring the East Team Scholarship to graduating senior at YHS who demonstrates the qualities of empathy and good citizenship. Beyond YCSD, I'm advancement chair for a Yorktown Boy Scout troop and also merit badge counselor. So I've had the honor of working with several young men locally and also in nationally on their journey to Eagle Scout. My educational background is all in finance. I have an MBA in finance from NYU. I earned my MBA while working full-time at Ernst & Young, and all my professional career is also in financial services for over 2 decades. 2 fun facts about me, interesting facts about me. 1, I speak 5 languages, and I'm also a 9/11 survivor.
Thank you, Ms. Bose. Ms. Roll?
Thank you, Lisa, for hosting this for us. I've been in your position, and I know what it's like to stand there for 2 hours. So thank you. I appreciate that. And thank you to everybody who's come out and who's watching and who's taking the time to learn about the board and show some interest. It's very much appreciated. My name is Lisa Roll. I have lived in Yorktown since about 2003. I have 3 kids. My 2 older children, Nicholas, graduated in 2016. My daughter, Amanda, I believe graduated with Mr. Janoska in 2018. And my youngest daughter, Juliana, is a junior with Cheryl's son. I also have an older stepdaughter who graduated in 2007. So I've been around for a while. I've seen the changes in the district, and I'm so proud of where we've come. Just behind us are some of the awards, nationally recognized awards that this district has earned since I've lived in this district, and I'm just so proud of it. I am an attorney by trade. I've been a practicing litigation attorney for 25 years. In terms of the community, I have served as president of several PTAs, the high school PTA, the district PTSA co-president. I've served on committees. Lisa and I have done so many events together. I was a scout leader for Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, been active with YYSC and YAC. The community means so much to me and to my family. But of course, my most honored position with this community has been serving as trustee, which I've been doing since 2016. There was a vacant seat, 2018. There was a vacant seat at that time. I was appointed to finish out that term. I was honored to do so, and then ran for re-election. And now my second term, I guess, is coming up, hopefully. But it's been my honor to serve as a trustee. I serve with Reshmi. She's chair of the audit committee, and I'm proud to be a part of that, learning more about the controls in our business office. And I also serve with Cheryl on the policy committee, where she is chair of that committee. I have to say, no offense, Resh, but policy committee is my favorite. But I'm honored to be here, and I thank you all for your time.
Thank you very much, everyone. With that, we'll move on to the second question that we've tried to encapsulate quite a few different topics in this area. The second question will be answered first by Mr. Panabianco. And the question is, if elected, what are your top priorities for the Yorktown Central School District Board of Education, and what guiding principles do you believe should be included in public education?
Okay. So the school board has a responsibility to implement a budget, oversee the contract, and be an official policymaker. That requires a school board member to be knowledgeable of many of the concerns and issues of the educators, the students, parents, and guardians, and the community. The school board needs to work with the community to make sure we improve student achievement and create a shared vision to set the direction of the district to achieve the highest student performance, and develop a budget and present it to the community. That aspect of a shared vision and community involvement is something that this school board needs to improve. Improving discussion between school boards and the community will help increase involvement at school board meetings. School board meetings with deliberation and discussion between the school board and the community are more likely to have a higher community engagement. This will increase trust in school officials by focusing on transparency, thus creating a willingness and participation from community members. Deliberation is defined as a two-way conversation or discussion between community members and the school board. where the school board officials directly respond to community concerns and questions. Our school board meetings have low attendance and lack community engagement. Unfortunately, this results in issues that get overlooked. We need to make sure that the school board is willing to explain their decision by making transparent and take the concerns of the community addresses to the board very seriously. The board needs to get back to fundamental basics and respect the collective voices of our parents, guardians, teachers, and the community. Support our students and provide them with the tools needed to succeed. Support our teachers and staff with the resources needed to provide the students with the best opportunity to succeed, to help each child with the educational journey that they go through. We have to make sure we are responsible with implementing a budget that is fair and addresses the needs of our students and support from the community. We have an obligation as a public servant that we give our student the opportunity to be successful and provide and support structure that allows for that.
Thank you so much. Mr. Janoska.
So if elected, my top priority would be bringing transparency from the board to the community. I feel parents have the right to know what's being taught in their schools and certain protocols being in place. There also needs to be better communication on how money received from COVID refund are being handled. On top of that, my second priority would be to bring in a new program called financial literacy to our district. Financial literacy is teaching the students how to manage their money. Some examples of this would be how to apply for a mortgage and what are the criteria, how to get credit card and how to prevent credit card debt. Also how taxes work and how to file your own taxes. As a recent graduate from Yorktown High School and soon to be college, I feel as this stuff would have been very helpful to have going into the real world, and hopefully we can apply this stuff to students as well.
Thank you. Ms. Bose?
I'll start by answering the second part of the question first, which is what guiding principles that must be included. So, to me, I really value the partnership that we have with our faculty and our administrators and our community. It is the basis for a lot, if not most, of our work. My experiences firsthand have shown me the amazing work that our teachers are doing, both inside and outside of the classrooms with their students. So that is definitely the primary basis for that. In terms of priorities, if reelected, really two big ones. One, to prepare our students to be the future leaders and to be ready and prepared to contribute to a global economy. And there are so many facets to this, that extend beyond academic learning in a classroom. There's character development, volunteerism, athletics, performing arts, technology, critical thinking skills, among, so many other skills. YCSD is known for its quality of teachers and is home to some of the finest. And we have eSTEAM, which is now an internationally recognized platform that keeps empathy at the forefront. As Lisa Roll mentioned, we have multiple awards. You'll see some of them on banners behind us. So really envisioning that eSTEAM 2.0 work and what that will involve, and laying the foundation for that would be one of my top priorities. The second piece to it, which is just as critical, is to maintain fiscal stability in the district. We are recovering from 2 years of a pandemic. We are facing rising inflation, and we are also operating under a fixed tax cap. Those are factors that will require us to be fiscally very prudent. We have funded the Capital Reserve Fund, and that's enabled us to undertake many of the large-scale projects. You've seen the high school gymnasium, the nurses' suite renovations, which came very handy during COVID, AC in the larger spaces, and so on. We also maintain an excellent credit rating with S&P. We have a AA+. So fiscal responsibility and prudence in that regard is just as important to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bose. Ms. Roll?
So when I looked at this question about what are the top 2 to 3 priorities as a Board of Ed trustee, for me, it's not about me and my personal beliefs. It's about what we've established as a community and as a district, and that's laid out, and I printed it here if anyone wants to read it. It's laid out on our website where we talk about our mission statement and our core beliefs. Those are things that as a community we value, and on the board we review those every year to make sure that we're still in line and we're focusing on that mission statement and those core beliefs and moving forward. When I look at the list of our core beliefs and our mission statement, there's a few things that stand out to me personally. And of course, the first one is providing a safe environment for our students and our faculty. There's nothing more important than keeping those kids safe while they're on our grounds and in our buildings and returning them home to you safely. Likewise with our faculty and staff, they have families to get home to too, and it's important that we make sure that all of them get home safely. We have been blessed with Tom Cole, who is amazing at security, and you've seen over the years the security in our buildings change and advance, and there's doors and checkpoints, and all of that is to keep our most precious asset, our kids, safe. So I'm very proud of that and appreciative of that. The second thing that stands out to me is providing an excellent education. We've talked about the awards. There's so many more. We're happy to tell you about other awards that have been awarded to our district and our individual schools nationally. But there's more than that. There's the kids that win the competition at dance. There's the kids who win the robotics competition. Maybe the little things that the community doesn't really hear about because it's not posted and it's not listed anywhere. But every day, our students and our faculty and our staff show their excellence, and that's important to keep that going. Dr. Hatter introduced E-STEAM, which is, to me, what shows another one of our core beliefs, and that is that everybody matters, everybody. And we have to show empathy for each other and understand each other. And, there's that golden rule, treat others the way you want to be treated. I like to think of it as a platinum rule, treat others better than you want to be treated, and that's emphasized here. So for me, it's not about me and my personal beliefs. It's about what we believe as a community.
Thank you, Ms. Roll. Mr. Capalbo?
So let me tell you a little bit about myself. When I was 40 years old, my company went through a massive layoff. It's something to come into work and see all your coworkers crying. I had a new baby, a new house, a mother with dementia, and no income coming in. I was a paper boy at 40 years old, delivering the Times. But I worked at it, and I got a good job, and I got back in my career path. What's the point of that? When we talk about academics and giving people the tools, the world that our children will be living in 20 years from now is going to be quite a bit different. And each one of them, life is going to throw obstacles at them. Life is going to throw curves at you, and we all experience pain in some sort. What we have to do on top of that is let them know the world owes them nothing. They have to have the character and the resilience to tackle the challenges that life throws at them. So that, to me, is a large priority. Obviously, the main goals of education is we have to give them knowledge, we have to teach them to think critically, and we have to give them the tools they need to succeed. But we also have to make them know that they have to do it themselves. They have to go out in the world and survive.
Thank you, Mr. Capalbo. Ms. Reynolds?
Sure, thank you. I, like Rashmi, am going to start with the second part of the question first and talk about my guiding principle. My guiding principle is very simple. The one thing that I keep my eye on as we make any decisions within the district is that students are always first. Students come first. Every decision we make is based on what's best for students. In line with that, and I talk about one of the priorities that I see in front of us is educating the whole child while maintaining a fiscally responsible budget. As we educate the whole child, programs like E-STEAM, like Ms. Roll just talked about, whether it's sports, clubs, performing arts, These are the things that are part of educating the whole child. We want to ignite a passion for learning, whether a child or a student is passionate about a STEAM-based program, whether it's an ELA-based program, whether it's a sport program, whether it's performing arts, whatever it may be, we want to make sure that we provide that opportunity for all of our students. The second priority for me is something that is near and dear to me. I've been on a Board of Ed trustee since 2015, and I've had my eye on the commuter lot. It falls under a bigger umbrella of school safety. That is always a priority for any school district, and it maintains a top priority for Yorktown. As far as the C lot goes, we've made a lot of headway over there. The commuter lot is adjacent to the Yorktown High School parking lot, and that's where many of our students park throughout the day. When Dr. Hatter first started, I had my eye on some changes that I would like to see there. Immediately, we cleared the brush so that we could have a visual scope of what was going on in there. Since then, and actually starting next school year, we will enter into a lease agreement with the town so that we have authority over the parking lot. We can issue parking spaces such as we do on campus. We are going to run a traffic pattern because we see some dangerous spots as you exit the lot, making left turns, and we are able to now add safety personnel there. That's not where we'll end with our school safety initiative. We're going to be adding, or we actually have added this year, a customized mapping system of all the schools so that if we have emergency personnel who arrive, they know and they have a better map of the school. We also intend to add an SRO to Crampon, as our history with the SROs in the past at the middle school and the high school have been highly beneficial for our students.
Thank you, Ms. Reynolds. We'll move on to question 3, now that everybody's answered that one, which will be answered first by Ms. Bose. The question is, the Book Review Committee has been reviewing and continues to review books that have been challenged for inclusion in the district's middle and high school libraries. What are your views on the necessary rigor in examining these challenges?
The book review process has been, and it continues to be, a rigorous one. So during the formation of the committee itself, we reviewed our policy. We asked for input from the community. We asked for volunteers who would like to serve on those committees. And the process for the formation of the committee was very transparent. There was a section on our website that kept the community up to date with where each book was in the process. During the review process, after the committees were formed, there were no hasty decisions that were made. There are very seasoned administrators and long-term teachers on these committees that are part of that decision-making process. Everyone was given time to read the books, collaborate, and then make an informed recommendation. To me, the books in any library, whether it's a school library, the university library, or a public library, a book is available for anyone that would like to refer to it or read it or look at it. It's not, the specific books in question are not required reading. There's no discussion about them becoming required reading. So at this point, the books under question or under review are books that are available to anyone that would like to read it. That's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Bose. Ms. Roll?
So I agree with Rashmi. The first thing you have to do when we have a comment from a community member, such as the ones we received about the books, we look to our policy. We take every comment that is made either by email or at the meetings or to us, on the field very seriously. We consider them all. We discuss them. So when the book issue came to us, the first thing we did was look at our policy and say, okay, what do we do? What is the process here? Because we have a community member or members who are concerned about something and we need to address it. And that's exactly what we did. following the process that's listed in the policy. We've even since then updated the policy because there were some things in it that kind of didn't make sense, like why would an elementary school teacher be a part of the committee reviewing a middle school or a high school book? So we kind of tweaked it a little, recognizing that it needed to be updated, and that's something we do on the policy committee every month. We look at various policies and update them, and then present them at the board for public comment. Here, with respect to the books, I'm a lawyer, I'm a big fan of due process, and that's what's happening here. It's a slow process, it's a deliberate process, it is a transparent process. The committee is made up of not just faculty and staff and administrators, but there's a community member who volunteered their time to be a part of it. So we're very much appreciative of that and everyone who's taking the time to go through that process. And I just support the process and making sure that we do what we need to do to address the concern.
Thank you, Ms. Roll. Mr. Capalbo?
Yeah, so this is exactly what I'm talking about with groupthink and the current school board being insular. This is hardly transparent. I've walked throughout all the neighborhoods of Yorktown, spoke to literally dozens and dozens and dozens of people, and I've yet to find one person that was aware that there was a committee. I'm asked a question about a committee with no context. I have no idea what the current process is. I have no idea who's on the committee. There's no transparency to what's going on. I don't know if they're reviewing the books or the process. This is not transparent. In my role in corporations, I'm a business analyst. For top corporations, I do process analysis. I would very much like to review this process, review the committee, and see what rigor is being applied. I will look for the deficiencies, and I will make recommendations.
Thank you, Mr. Capalbo. Ms. Reynolds?
Thank you. Yes, I agree with Ms. Roll as far as the process that we use to evaluate the books and the comments that we receive. The policy that Ms. Roll was referring to, as co-chair of the policy committee, she's right, we did reevaluate the policy because a few tweaks that needed to be needed and issues that weren't very clear. The policy is number 1420, and it's on our school district website. So if you'd like to learn more about it, feel free to go there. It's very explicit in the process that we follow. The updates are on our website as well, so feel free to check them. Most recently, the district accomplished reviewing the 4th of 9 books that were challenged, and all of those updates are right there on the website. Like Ms. Roll said, we start out with an informal review process that you can meet with the principal and the teacher who has either assigned the book, or if it's the librarian and it's optional book, that's where we start in the process. If you can't resolve your issues informally, you can go to a formal process, and that would be submitting the form that we provide and allowing us to know what your concerns are. It does get forwarded to an instructional material review committee that's comprised of staff members and, as Ms. Roll said, also a community member. After that, they all read the book, they review the book, and they provide their recommendation. It's delivered to our superintendent, and then he evaluates their recommendation and decides what the stance will be and where the book will preside. All 4 of our books remain on the shelves at this point that we have reviewed. My personal stance on this is I respect the process. I do feel like it's a very transparent process. We've adhered to the policy. We've selected community members to be on the process. And the decisions have been, we've been through almost half of our books at this point. And that's where we stand at this point. So if you need more information on it, please feel free to visit our website. Everything is right there.
Thank you, Ms. Reynolds. Mr. Panabianco?
Yes. So I'm just hearing that the 4 books are still on the shelf without the finalization of the process. So that's something that I think is concerning. So as parents and educators have always come together to agree with what children should read that is educational, informative, and appropriate content. Sometimes that content is challenged based on racism, profanity, promoting hate, bigotry, divisive language, sexual explicit, sexual overtones, and sometimes religious components. The book review committee has an obligation to review books that have been challenged and must apply the necessary rigor in examining these challenges by putting together the review committee that has representation from all constituencies, school, parents, students, and community. This allows for a diverse perspective that is essential for a thorough and fair evaluation. Parents and guardians have the right to know what material their children are reading. Parents are the line of defense when it comes to protecting their children from inappropriate material for their age group. A book with a topic that is inappropriate for a particular age may not be well suited to a child. Waiting until a child is mature enough to understand the obscene language or explicit sexual content is necessary to promote healthy development. Many times these materials are in public schools and public libraries. I can speak for my granddaughter who went to get her little first ABC book, and it turned out to be not the ABC book that I read when I was a kid. Asexual, bisexual, sexual, explicit pictures in there, sickening. I can't even talk about it. May not even know that their kids were exposed to this material. The American Academy of Pediatrics says children who receive exposure to violence in books at an early age can encourage them to act with more aggression. So if a book has an adult topic that is sexually explicit and graphic, that exposure can have a long-term effect for a child's mind that is not mature enough to handle it. A parent or guardian wants to have the opportunity to discuss challenging topics with their children. A parent or guardian wants to speak with their child about subject matter that is inappropriate, rather than allowing someone to shape the narrative with their personal opinions or biases. Approving books for a school board without input or guidance can shape the perspective of a child without the ability to form their own opinion. Thus, having a review committee with input for all relevant groups allows for a fair process on evaluating the appropriate material. No one is stopping a person from writing a book. No one is preventing them from being sold. There are still certain markets and platforms that these books can be deemed age appropriate. Some people are calling it book banning, which it is.
Thank you, Mr. Panabianco. Mr. Janoska?
So there are certain topics that I don't think the district has responsibility of teaching kids. I think that this is stuff that should be left at home to the parents. I believe that this is an example of allowing politics to dictate how to educate our students instead of looking at topics that will help them succeed in life. Let's go back to the topic of transparency. Many parents that I've talked to had no idea that these books were even on the shelves until they were put there. From what I saw in these books and questions, I do not see how they help our students, and it's not a topic to be teaching our students, rather it should be left to be taught at home. If elected, I did hear concerns that the committee is taking some time to review these books and people want it to be sped up. So if elected, I would like to speed up the committee review of these books and even volunteer to be part of the committee. This being a very important issue, it needs to be full attention to bring to closure. I also want to bring in more parents' involvement when it comes to new books in our libraries.
Thank you, Mr. Janoska. Thank you all for sharing your views on this. The fourth question, which we will move on to, will be answered first by Ms. Roll. Ms. Roll, given the role of the Board of Education in the budget process, what critical issues would you prioritize, and what do you see as issues of concern in the budget?
So the budget process is a very long one, and I think there's a lot that goes on that is not known. For example, the budget process for the next school year, the following school year, begins in the fall. So the budget that you're all seeing now, that process began in the fall with our business office, looking at our numbers and gathering all of the information, anticipating the state aid that we'll be receiving. In terms of this year's budget, I'm very proud of it. I think it's I'm not thrilled that there's a tax increase in the Yorktown area at 1.91, but considering the circumstances and coming out of this pandemic and the inflation, the increased cost of everything that's out there, it's really excellent. There's been a lot of misinformation about the budget, and I would encourage everyone to please go back and watch the Board of Ed meetings where we had a series of each aspect of the budget and went over it in detail so everyone could understand it. And I'll give you an example of what I've heard about one of the misinformation. And that has to do with the staff health insurance. So there's been some discussion that I've heard that we approved an 8% increase in the premiums, and that's what's causing our budget to be what it is. The reality is, Yorktown School District is a part of a symposium of districts, part of the Putnam, Northern Westchester BOCES, and they set the premiums that each district has to contribute. In fact, on our seat in that symposium, we voted no to that increase. Unfortunately, we were outvoted, and we're stuck with the premium increase. We have no choice but to pay the increased premiums for our staff and our faculty. And when you look at it, thank goodness, right? We want our staff and our faculty to be happy and healthy and be compensated for the work that they do for us. And health insurance premiums, as anyone who works in the real world understands, that's a reality, and it's a stiff price. I'm super proud that over the past 5 or 6 years, our tax increase, and I think Reshmi will correct me, I think it's 0.056% average over the past 5 or 6 years. That's amazing. So while, this year's increase is, a little bit hard to look at, if you look at it over the past 5 or 6 years, it's really been quite amazing, and I'm very proud of our business office and the work that they've accomplished.
Thank you, Ms. Roll. Mr. Capalbo?
My health insurance premiums went up, but I had to pay it, not you. The critical issue with the budget, I think, is transparency. I ask myself, would I vote for this budget, and would I be able to justify this to someone in the community struggling to get by? Why should they vote for this increase? We must understand that the budget doesn't exist in isolation. It is one more bill in a stack of bills, all of which are going up. CPI numbers came out today at over 8%, the highest in 40 years. People are now faced with rampant inflation and an uncertain economic future. They have to make tough choices, and so must we. I have personally witnessed people unable to pay food at the checkout line in the stores. I myself have had to reevaluate my expenditures. Everyone I know is feeling pain. We must show empathy to people in our community. I attended the last school board meeting about the budget in an honest attempt to learn more. I did not witness a single tough question from the board. I did not leave with the high level of confidence that the board was applying the necessary scrutiny and oversight that this community deserves. What are the metrics we are using to justify new expenses? What are the metrics to determine the return on investment for existing expenditures? Perhaps this is all there, but there's not the transparency, and the messaging needs to be improved.
Thank you, Mr. Capalbo. Ms. Reynolds?
Thank you. As we start the budget process, what we do is the process is started prior to the first of the year. However, the presentations start around, I believe it's the first Board of Ed meeting after the first of the year. Those videos, and every one of them, is on our website. So if anyone wants more information about the budget, feel free. They're very clear. The slides are there. It gives you some detailed information about the budget. In addition to that, next week, our yearly budget newsletter will be coming out. And if you have any questions about our budget, you can certainly ask one of our administrators or our business official. The critical issues affecting the budget or that are linked to the budget this year, the tax cap, staying under the tax cap has been challenging for us over the past few years. We look at enrollment, and what our enrollment looks like now may not be the same as what it looks like at the end of the summer, so we have to plan for increasing enrollment, which is what we've been seeing over the past few years. We have to look at staffing and staffing in anticipation of increasing enrollment, and also for the enrollment that we currently have. We also have capital reserve projects that we've been on and been working on, and one of the things we've done, and I think we've been true to our family and our community to let them know about some of the great things that are going on within the district. I'm on the steering committee, and to keep a safe environment and to keep a comfortable environment for our students, we've been working on projects like the high school gym. We plan on working on the middle school gym this summer, the Crampon cafeteria this summer, and putting in air conditioning for all of the large instructional areas. So all of these things have to be taken into account when planning a budget. And again, it's all about the students. They have to be comfortable. They have to be secure. They have to feel safe. It's our staff as well. Again, same things. They have to feel comfortable and safe in our buildings. They have to be given the instructional technology and the instructional devices and the materials to be able to teach to our children. My concerns about the budget are two things. If it gets voted down, we can put it back up, but then after that, if it gets voted down again, all of the wonderful programs I've been talking about that we use to educate the whole child could possibly go. So things like performing arts, things like sports, things like the clubs may no longer exist. So that's definitely a concern of mine. And the capital reserve has also been set up so that we can alleviate some of the fees associated with borrowing money. And if that's voted down, we will incur increased costs in the future as we move forward with our projects to keep our kids safe and comfortable.
Thank you, Ms. Reynolds. Mr. Panabianco?
Thank you. So actually, the proposed budget for 2022-2023 school year does provide some reasonable budget allocations in comparison with similar schools, districts, and previous budgets. But some questions need to be asked on, for example, the fund balance portion. This comes from the cash reserves appropriated to support the subsequent year's budget. The 2021 to 2022 budget had $557,000 allocated, whereas the 2022-2023 has a projection of $2.65 million. So where did that projection come from? Are we able to meet that? And if we don't, what will these allocations be used for if we do? People tend to associate fund balance as a sort of savings account, but it is more involved. It is more of the amount of assets in excess of liabilities. This would include investments, accounts receivable, inventories, and delinquent taxes. The fund balance fluctuates throughout the year. Therefore, good indicator is to have a comparison to the previous year and especially over the past 5 years. You've projected over $2 million more than the previous year. This is important to ask the question as to how long the current fund balance can carry the district if all revenue were used up and expenses were increased. In addition, the sales tax portion of the budget, which is projected to be $1.75 million, again, comparing it to the previous year, was $1.3 million. How is that estimate projected? Based on current economic issues, inflation, gas prices, food prices, etc., how are we estimating an amount almost $500,000 more over the previous year? If you prorate the increase in your estimation over the past years, your estimate is not in line with these numbers. School board budgets should have a focus on shared vision that focuses on areas that will enable academic improvement and provide required resources for the staff. The budget implication should guide how resources can be used to boost student outcome. So in agreement with a lot of the sports and art programs, but we also have to understand the economic situation that is going on and really evaluate our funds appropriately. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Janoska?
When it comes to the school budget, it's always a tricky topic. Spending money to better our schools districts brings a lot of value to our community. A great school district makes your community a desirable place to live, which increases home value while giving our students a high level of education. At the same time, it does increase taxes to the residents of Yorktown. Being fiscally responsible should be the top priority when constructing the budget. We need to make sure to continue the high quality of education in Yorktown while taking the taxpayers into consideration. Like any budget, there are sometimes wasteful spending, and if elected, I would like to see if there was any wasteful spending we can avoid. We need more transparency when it comes to the budget, with more of a breakdown of where the money is being used. This includes where's the COVID relief money going and other state aid. This could help identify and eliminate any wasteful spending.
Thank you. Ms. Bowes?
This year's budget has been proposed after careful consideration over several months. The process started in the fall based on our projected state aid and the numbers that we had at that point in time. And when we presented to the community, to keep things, somewhat manageable, every meeting, we would pick a different section of the budget to present. There was transportation, general ed, special education, athletics, clubs, debt service. So each individual section of the budget and the presentation, the videos, the discussions are all available on our website. And they go back starting January, February. This year's budget is a solid budget. We are under the tax levy cap. We are sensitive to taxpayer needs, but we're also faced with several adverse factors. There is rising inflation. Costs are up. Our costs are up. And we're also seeing some lingering effects from the pandemic. In the 6 years that we've been on the board, like Lisa and Cheryl said, the average tax rate increase has been just slightly north of 0.5%. And this is in the context of keeping an excellent credit rating, which, as you know, is super important to a school district to keep our costs of borrowing minimal. We're adding programs. We're also adding teaching and assistant teaching personnel. We're making investments in technology, in security. So there's a lot that is being offered in this year's budget. Our students need to be prepared for jobs that we possibly cannot envision today, but they might become relevant in their lifetime. So, for example, when the internet became mainstream in the 90s, no one could have thought cybersecurity would be the booming career. But now it is projected to grow at a rate of 33% in the next 10 years. Our students need to be ready for what the future will bring their way. And by having a solid budget, and by having a prudent budget, and having a budget that had a lot of careful thought go into it, is really how we are going to get them there.
Thank you, Ms. Bose. I think Ms. Roll started, so we will move on to the next question, which will be answered first by Mr. Janoska. The question is, the New York State Education Department has set forth expectations that all school districts develop policies that advance diversity, equity, and inclusion. What are your views on how the district can best meet these expectations, and what is the role of the Board of Education?
When it comes to this, I would rather teach students that we are all equal with the same opportunities, so that when the generation gets out into the real world, it's all they know. By teaching anything else, you would bring division in our schools. I do not think we should be giving students excuses on why they may not be successful, but instead teach them that they can do anything that they put their mind to and overcome any obstacle that they are faced with in their life. Here's another example where we're allowing politics to dictate that our students are being taught in our schools. We need to take politics out of our schools and put in programs that will be helpful in their everyday life. That's why, if elected, I would like to put financial literacy into the district. I know firsthand that this program would be very helpful in life.
Thank you, Mr. Janoska. Ms. Bose?
Our policy committee comprises of 3 board members. Ms. Roll, Ms. Reynolds chairs it, Ms. Carbone. They meet regularly with our attorney, our administrators, Dr. Hatter, Mrs. O'Shea. So it's a committee that meets, that provides updates in every public meeting and public business meeting. Any policy that is adopted by the board goes through a first read, a second read, and is only then adopted. So there are really some good people. They are smart, they are hardworking, and they have the students' interests at heart. There's some really good people on our policy committee. The concept of inclusion and kindness is not a new one to Yorktown. Our mission statement speaks to it. The first E in ESTEAM stands for empathy. So we have really used that as a framework for our work for the past 5 years and even before that. The banners that you see behind us are testament to that work. Our approach towards diversity, equity, and inclusion will be thoughtful. It will be incremental. just like all the other work that you have seen from us. We have a visionary superintendent whom we hired 5 years ago. We have 7 members on the Board of Education. We don't always agree on things. Quite the contrary. There's often 7, 8, 9, 10 different opinions in the room. But what we do is we collaborate. We're able to have a conversation and make an informed recommendation. Our goal has always been students first, and that doesn't plan to change.
Thank you, Ms. Bose. Ms. Roll?
So diversity, equity, and inclusion is a very personal issue for me. And when the State Department of Education put down the mandate that we had to implement policies to encourage that, I thought, don't we already have that? Look at our mission statement. Look at our core beliefs. Everything is there. This is something that is front and center and led by Dr. Hatter, our superintendent. I mean, we're sitting here in the middle school cafeteria, and directly in front of me is a gigantic banner that says, kindness, tolerance equals empathy. This has been taught in our schools for so long, and it's not a part of the curriculum. It's not a course. You don't take a kindness course or an empathy course. It is just incorporated in the way in which everyone in the buildings interact with each other, from the staff down to our youngest learners, the kindergartners. It is just ingrained in who we are. So to kind of twist that and to say it is something more than it is, other than treat others better than you expect to be treated, that's what we're talking about here. And that's the policies. That's our core belief. That's our mission statement. That's Yorktown.
Thank you, Ms. Roll. Mr. Capalbo?
Are we expected to believe that New York State is telling us to be nice to others? Okay. I've worked in compliance, and I've implemented regulations from the Federal Reserve, from FINRA, from the Bank of International Settlements, and internationally for the European Banking Authority. And I know firsthand what companies do is the first thing they do is they push back on regulations. They don't just accept them. I don't know what this means, an expectation. New York State, we have an expectation. What is that? Is that legal? Is it optional? Are there financial strings attached? I don't know. Getting expectations from the state, to me, sounds Orwellian. Shouldn't it be us giving expectations to the government? They serve us. Judging by the mass exodus out of New York, the number of people homeschooling, I don't think the government is meeting our expectations. So I write specifications for a living, and they're very exact. So we hear all this nice talk about we should be nice to others. Yeah, of course. Treat others as you want to be treated. Definitely. But really, how is this being implemented? What are the details of this, right? When I saw the math texts that were in Florida and how this was being put into the math and corrupting math, I was aghast. So I would not blithely follow these expectations until I did rigorous due diligence on them. This is all just abstract words that we're saying, but I want to know the devil's in the details, and that's where the decision should be made.
Thank you, Mr. Capalbo. Ms. Reynolds?
Thank you. As my colleagues, Ms. Roll and Ms. Bose had so eloquently stated, I agree what they've said. This does not come down to one policy. Diversity, equity, and inclusion has been woven throughout our policies for many years. I would like to read to you just to capture the complete essence of one of our very first policies. That's our mission statement and beliefs. The mission of the Yorktown Central School District is to provide a comprehensive learning experience that emphasizes the education of the whole child. We will achieve our mission by providing students with skills to be compassionate world citizens. We value diversity and global consciousness. We encourage moral conscience. Part of our core beliefs, again, quoting what we have in our policies, educate the whole child to make a difference in the community, country, and world. We provide a safe, welcoming environment for the intellectual success of all members. We respect and embrace diversity in all of its forms. Our policies have been around since probably 1995. They are reviewed periodically. Most of them have minimal adjustments, but this has been woven into our policies for a very long time. So it doesn't come down to one policy. This is part of our mission statement and core beliefs, and we value our students. We want people to feel welcomed and comfortable in the classroom to share their experience or decide not to share an experience. We want relevant instruction for our students, and most of all, we want our students to come to school feeling like they can be themselves.
Thank you, Ms. Reynolds. And finally, Mr. Panabianco.
Sure. So the State of New York Education Department, or the Board of Regents, launched an initiative to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion in the schools. If we define diversity as the differences in a given setting and respect those differences of each individual, no matter their race, culture, ethnicity, or religion, that is important to provide good practices of including all people from a range of different backgrounds. Focusing diversity as having a variety of differences and celebrate those differences as a means to lift up the individual, then absolutely that should be celebrated. But we must not demonize others at the expense of promoting another individual. As an educator myself for almost 30 years, as with all educators, our passion has been to support our students and provide them with the tools needed to succeed. My focus is to make sure no child is discriminated against, bullied, or treated unjustly. Empowering and inspiring the individual is important to ensuring the student with the best opportunity to be successful, thus providing leadership for a system that yields the best educated people and promotes student achievement, for competitiveness by fostering educational excellence. Defining equity as the quality of being fair and impartial needs to be upheld in all aspects of society, especially in our schools. A school should not promote policies or programs that are impartial or unfair. We have a moral obligation to make sure each individual is treated fairly and that all students, regardless of their differences, should have the same opportunities as everyone. Equity that allows for full participation for all individuals and focuses on issues of access, policies, practices, and resources to ensure all can contribute and receive fair treatment and opportunity for their success. Inclusion is creating an environment where all individuals are engaged, creating a shared vision for diversity and inclusion. There can be no keener revelation of society soul than the way it treats children. Nelson Mandela. I actually taught in New York City, like I said. I've been teaching for almost 30 years, and none of my students are white. All my students are minority backgrounds, and most of the issue is not the these issues. It's economic issues. It's unfortunate that I deal with students and they don't have the same resources that we do here in Yorktown. So that's where a lot of the issues come from, and that's something to address. And I think Yorktown has to focus again back on its educational policies for the child, because it has already embedded in all these diversity.
Thank you, Mr. Panabianco. I have to commend all the candidates. We have gone through these questions quite efficiently, so I find myself looking at the last and closing question of the evening, or I guess statement of the evening, which will be answered first by Ms. Reynolds. So in closing, what is your vision, and what are your goals for the Yorktown Central School District if you were elected?
My vision encompasses a comprehensive instructional program as we educate the whole child. I'm proud of the 70 co-curriculars we offer at the high school, of our athletic teams, the 60 sports teams we have at all different levels. I'm proud of our eSTEAM program, empathy being the driving force behind STEM and STEAM-based instruction, it being the who, what, why are we doing what we're doing or creating what we're creating. I'm very proud that we have students who are able to put themselves in another person's shoes and react or respond to that to create or to think, prompt thinking, critical thinking on how we can improve lives, or how we can improve the community, or how we can change the world. We have incredible performing arts programs, our band, orchestra, choir, the shows that we have. We have students and teachers who foster empathy, creativity, and innovation. We want to spark a love for lifelong learning, and we want to encourage strong moral conscience. So really, my goal to continue on with the Board of Education is all of these things, to make sure that we have students who are happy and healthy and go through our school district with many different opportunities. Educating the whole child is a big piece of who I am. As a public school graduate from Pleasantville, I was able to take part in all of these programs. I was in all sorts of differentiated learning. I was able to take part in advanced, math, social studies, all sorts of academic programming. I was on many different clubs, United Nations Club, Yearbook Committee. I participated in many different sports. I was a cheerleader. I was on the softball team. I was in every show going. So really my promise to the students of our district is to make sure that they have the opportunities that I had when I graduated Pleasantville High School.
Thank you, Ms. Reynolds. Mr. Panabianco?
So first I will address the question of whether there should be term limits or maximum time someone can serve. That should be up to the voters. Maybe someone will put that on a ballot one time, and New York residents can vote on that. But what I will say is that it isn't a coincidence that school boards around the country have had a spotlight on them. Maybe it's the same incumbent members continue to get voted in because they are unopposed, or if you look here and throughout the country, there are finally people getting involved. We have 6 people running for 3 positions. A friend told me in his district that there were 12 people running for 4 positions. This is not by chance. This is a result of school boards becoming either complacent or ignoring the voice of the parents and community. The lack of transparency and disregard for collective voices is why I am here. We can focus on education, but yet let's look at our mission statement that we've talked about a few times tonight. The first thing in the mission statement is providing students with skills and values to be competent world citizens. 2, valuing diversity and global consciousness. 3, emphasizing development and maximizing group potential. 4, developing the importance of healthy lifestyle. 5, encouraging moral conscience. 6, fostering creativity. 7, educating the whole child to be caring. Again, I'm taking parts of it, but to emphasize what we're seeing here. Number 8, providing an orderly environment which fosters a climate for the emotional social success. 9, contribute to the development of each child's personal behaviors. 10, model a lifelong love of learning. I have not seen anything about academics in that. Number 11, that home, the school, and the community partner to enhance the development of every learner. And 12, respect and embrace diversity. These are the missions of the school board. Nothing there about the academics. What does it mean to be a world citizen or evaluating the whole child? Why are we focusing on only half the child before? I don't know. Contribute to the child's personal behavior? Where is the emphasis on merit, academics, and education? If you feel the mission for our students is global consciousness, again, what are you even saying? What does that even mean? If this is the focus of the board, then clearly that's an issue, and that's the reason there are 6 people running here and so many other places in the country. School boards must get back to the basic principles of the individual child's education. Whether this board has lost its focus or ignored the parents is an indication that it is time to address that with transparency and accountability. We have an obligation to our children to take care of our most vulnerable.
Thank you, Mr. Panabianco. Mr. Janoska?
As you can see from most of my answers, transparency is very important to me. I've been to a couple school board meetings. I've seen how they've been run. If elected, I would like to bring a new format to the Board of Education meetings. The format I would like to present is a town hall meeting where every other month, instead of having an agenda for the board, we will be welcoming questions and concerns from the parents, and it will be the responsibility of the board to answer those questions at that time. If those questions cannot be answered, it is then the board's responsibility to answer those questions in the following meeting, where the board will update the community on how they have handled any concerns or questions and give a rundown of the procedures to ensure these things are being handled properly. On top of that, another topic I would like to address is term limits. I do believe that term limits is needed. What those term limits are should be discussed between the parents and decided by them. I think that bringing in fresh ideas can be positive effect and benefit our district.
Thank you. Ms. Bose?
The pandemic has shown me that our students, our faculty, our administration, our parents are very resilient when faced with adverse situations. We will need to remain fiscally prudent. We will need to prepare our students for the future. There are very few high schools in the country where students can take engineering classes in the high school. And there are even fewer high schools where students can take 3 years of engineering and a data science class before they have even graduated from high school. We have seen our rankings in the U.S. News and World Report's top high schools climb steadily, consistently every year. We have won America's Top STEM Schools award. So we see our progress in the academics. We see where our students are off to, and we follow their amazing career paths. If re-elected, I believe that the best is yet to come. I work closely with Lisa Wall and with Cheryl Reynolds, our administrators, our staff, our students, our community. And there's so much more that can be done. Some would say what we've accomplished so far is monumental, perhaps even impossible. But our vision doesn't end there. On the topic of term limits, I think the beauty of the voting process is that our voters decide who serves and for how long and what's important to them. And I believe that they will make their prudent choice on Tuesday.
Thank you, Ms. Bose. Ms. Roll?
Heard a lot of talk this evening about transparency and trying to understand how the board works and what the board does and what the board thinks. What's interesting to me is that pre-COVID, we would go to a board meeting, we would have a board meeting here in this room, and there would be nobody with us, not a single person. In fact, we would joke, public comment session, anybody want to speak? And there crickets, there's nobody there. Since the pandemic, we went to the virtual platform and people started to participate in our meetings, which was fabulous. And every meeting, we have a public comment session before we start the agenda, and we have one after we start the agenda. And those have a limited time by policy, 30 minutes, but we voted each and every time there were enough people there to extend that time and hear every voice at every meeting for every community member who wanted to be heard. There's questions about how did this get to in the budget? How did you get to that? How did you arrive at this or that? It's all available. And when we do the individual presentations on the budget, transportation, extracurricular, whatever it is, there's an opportunity to ask the questions at that point. I have not heard any of those questions during this school year, questioning where we are, how did that get arrived at, asking the business office to explain it. We've had a difficult time, and our district has gone through this amazingly well. During the pandemic, we met very frequently, because there were so many crucial issues. We all lost a lot of sleep worrying about our district. And we were proud to do it, and we were proud to do it with Dr. Hatter, who led us through those rough waters out to smooth sailing. And we're coming out of it. but we can't forget that there are long-lasting effects from what we all went through over the past 2+ years. Ask your kids, are you okay? Ask your friends, are you okay? That's the vision for us. We need to get back to the 2020 vision we started before the pandemic hit and continue on our path of excellence, academics, awards, extracurricular, and moving forward in a positive direction where we all care about each other.
Thank you, Ms. Roll. Mr. Capalbo?
Yeah, hi. So if elected, I will work to ensure that everyone can communicate in a climate of civility and respect. All members of our community deserve transparency into how our schools are run and how their tax dollars are spent. Parents, students, and taxpayers need a seat at the table, and I will work to build a partnership between the community and the schools. And I will represent the forgotten parent. I would like to say I also echo all the sentiments by Frank. It was very well said. I don't believe that we necessarily have our focus on the right thing. And I will also say that a lot of my opinions aren't my opinions. They're opinions I've gotten from walking the community, walking the town, talking to a lot of people. And this is what they're telling me. And surprise, surprise, that the incumbents all think they're transparent. They're not. And I have noticed one recurring theme talking to people in this community that I find quite disturbing. There is a veil of fear in this community. Many people are afraid to voice their opinion publicly. Business owners are afraid their businesses will suffer. People are getting trashed on social media. People have had their employers called and lost their jobs. And worst of all, parents with school-aged children fear there will be reprisal against their children if they speak their minds. I've heard repeatedly about bullying from teachers. This is unacceptable. No voice should be silenced through intimidation. There is a small, organized group of ideologues forcing their will upon the community at large. These aggressive tactics are corrosive and must not be tolerated. We are better than this. This must end here, and it must end now. Our schools should provide a rigorous academic environment that fosters ethical behavior, critical thinking, virtuous leadership, lifelong learning, and truth-seeking with a firm foundation in cognitive, non-cognitive, and technical skills. That is the role of the school, and that's what the school board should be prioritizing. And finally, we must recognize that the parents are the ultimate guardian of their children. Neither the school nor the state should subordinate nor subsume the role of the parent.
Thank you, Mr. Capalbo. I want to thank all of the candidates for taking the time to be here tonight and share your views with us. I also want to thank the district PTSA. I believe some of the board members are here. Erin Roki, Lisa Buccolo. Did I miss anybody? Liz Ackerley, who is the president of the district PTSA, could not be here with us tonight, but worked tirelessly and very quickly to put this evening together, so a big thank you to her. I also want to thank Trish Harris and the sound crew and the video crew for supporting us logistically to get this evening off the ground, and also for making it possible for folks to join us that couldn't be here with us in person tonight or want to view this at a later time. So thank you so much. A reminder to all that the budget and the Board of Ed vote is on Tuesday, May 17th at French Hill School from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. And with that, I thank you all for being here and have a great evening.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Lisa.
First thing is get the air conditioning fixed. Thank you.